You can't just steal my designs and pass them off as your own. Everyone here needs to see this, your designs.
Please, you signed the contract.
The Yacht Club smelled like old money and fresh betrayal. I adjusted my rental tuxedo for the third time, watching my wife Jennifer glide through the crowd like she owned the place. Maybe she thought she did. "Danny, stop fidgeting," Jennifer whispered, her smile never wavering as she nodded to the Harrington family. "These people are important for my career." Important. Right. I ran a boat repair shop down at the marina, fixing engines for guys who actually worked for a living. Jennifer worked at TechFlow Dynamics, some startup that promised to revolutionize something or other. The only thing revolutionary about tonight was how much this monkey suit was costing me. "I'll get us drinks," I said, needing space from her performance. The bar was packed with the usual suspects, old families with older money, new tech executives with newer attitudes, and everyone in between trying to climb higher on whatever ladder they thought mattered. I ordered 2 glasses of champagne, watching the bartender pour liquid that probably cost more than my monthly rent. That's when I saw him. Richard Blackwood. The name alone sounded like it belonged on a villain's business card. He'd blown into town 6 months ago, buying properties left and right, throwing money around like confetti, tall, silver-haired, the kind of guy who wore confidence like expensive cologne. He was talking to Jennifer, not just talking, leaning in close, his hand resting on her lower back. She was laughing at something he'd said, that genuine laugh she used to save for me, the laugh that made her eyes crinkle at the corners. I made my way back through the crowd, champagne glasses in hand, my jaw clenched tight enough to crack teeth. "Jennifer, your drink," I said, forcing a smile. She turned, and for just a second, I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt? Annoyance? Then her social mask slipped back into place. "Danny, meet Richard Blackwood. Richard, this is my husband Danny." Before we deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Blackwood extended his hand. His grip was firm, deliberate. "Pleasure. Jennifer's told me so much about you." "Has she?" I glanced at Jennifer. "Funny, she's never mentioned you." Jennifer's laugh sounded forced now. "Richard's been helping with some real estate investments for the company." "Among other things," Blackwood said, his eyes never leaving Jennifer's face. The music shifted to something slower, more intimate. Couples began moving toward the dance floor. "Jennifer, would you honor me with a dance?" Blackwood asked, already extending his arm. She looked at me, and I saw the moment she made her choice. "I'd love to." I stood there, holding 2 glasses of champagne, watching my wife of 8 years dance with a man who looked at her like she was already his. The crowd around me buzzed with conversation, but I caught the whispers, the sideways glances. Poor Danny. "Did you see how she looked at him?" I heard Blackwood's worth millions. The song ended, but they didn't separate. Another song began, and they kept dancing. Blackwood whispered something in Jennifer's ear that made her throw her head back and laugh. That's when he did it. Still holding Jennifer close, Blackwood reached into his jacket and pulled out his wallet. He extracted a crisp $100 bill, walked over to me, and held it out. "Thanks for lending her to me tonight," he said, loud enough for the people around us to hear. "I'll make sure she gets home safe." The conversation stopped. Every eye in our section of the room was on us. Jennifer stood frozen on the dance floor, her face flushed. I stared at the money in his hand. $100? Like I was some kind of service worker he could tip for good behavior. "Keep it," I said quietly. "You'll need it more than me." Blackwood's smile widened. "I doubt that very much." He tucked the bill into my jacket pocket anyway, his hand lingering just long enough to make the gesture deliberately humiliating. Then he turned back to Jennifer, who was already moving toward him. "Ready to go?" he asked her. She nodded without looking at me. They left together, Jennifer's hand on his arm, walking past me like I was furniture. The crowd parted for them, then closed again, leaving me standing alone with 2 glasses of champagne and a $100 bill burning a hole in my pocket. The whispers started immediately. Can you believe that?" Right in front of everyone. I'd never let my husband be treated like that. I set the glasses down on a nearby table and walked out of the yacht club, my rental shoes clicking on the marble floor. The valet brought my 10-year-old pickup truck around, and I tipped him with Blackwood's $100 bill. "Thanks, sir," the kid said, eyes wide. Don't mention it." I drove home slowly, taking the long way through town. Our house, my house technically since I'd inherited it from my grandfather, sat dark and empty. Jennifer's car wasn't in the driveway. Inside, I poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon and sat in my grandfather's old recliner. The house felt different somehow, like something fundamental had shifted in the few hours I'd been gone. My phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer. "Staying at Lisa's tonight. We need to talk tomorrow." Lisa, her best friend and coworker, the one who'd been encouraging Jennifer's personal growth and exploring new opportunities. Right. I finished my bourbon and poured another. Then I did something I'd never done before in 8 years of marriage. I went through Jennifer's things. Her laptop was password protected, but I knew her patterns. She used variations of the same passwords for everything. Our anniversary, her birthday, combinations of both. It took me 4 tries to get in. Her email was a revelation. Months of correspondence with Blackwood, starting professional and gradually becoming personal. Dinner meetings that had never been mentioned to me. Photos from business trips I'd thought she'd taken alone. But it was the recent emails that made my hands shake. "Danny's becoming a problem," she'd written 3 days ago. "He's suspicious, asking questions. Maybe it's time to be more direct about what we want." Blackwood's response was immediate. "Leave that to me. After tomorrow night, he'll get the message." Tomorrow night. Tonight, the message, the public humiliation, the $100 bill, the whispers and stares. It had all been planned. I closed the laptop and sat back in the chair, my mind racing. Jennifer hadn't just cheated on me, she'd orchestrated my humiliation, turned me into a joke in front of half the town. But here's the thing about underestimating the guy who fixes boats for a living. We're good with our hands, we understand how things work, and we know that every system has a weakness. I pulled out my phone and started making calls. The next morning, I was at Murphy's motorcycle repair by 7 a.m. Tommy Murphy had been my best friend since high school, the kind of guy who'd help you move a body without asking questions. Not that it would come to that. "You look terrible," Tommy said, wiping grease off his hands with a rag. "Let me guess. The fancy party didn't go well." I told him everything. The dance, the money, the emails, Jennifer's text. Tommy listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each detail. "That rich piece of work thinks he can buy your wife and humiliate you in public?" Tommy shook his head. "What are you going to do about it?" "I'm going to make them both regret it. Legal-like, right? I'm not going to jail for your marriage problems. Completely legal, but not exactly ethical." Tommy grinned. "Now you're talking my language." We spent the next hour planning. Tommy had connections throughout the town. Mechanics, bartenders, delivery guys, security guards, people who noticed things, who had access to places, who knew how to keep their mouths shut. "First thing," I said, "I need to know where they went last night." "Already on it." Tommy pulled out his phone. "My cousin Rick works security at the Harbor Grand Hotel. Says a silver Bentley was in the VIP parking section all night. Didn't leave until this morning." The Harbor Grand. The most expensive hotel in town, the kind of place that charged $500 a night for rooms with ocean views. Rick get a room number? Penthouse suite. Blackwood's got it reserved through the end of the month. Of course he did. What else? Blackwood's got a reputation. This isn't his first time playing games with married women. Word is, he gets off on the conquest more than anything else. Likes to show off, make the husbands look weak. Well, he picked the wrong husband this time. I spent the rest of the morning at the marina, ostensibly working on Mrs. Patterson's sailboat engine, but really thinking through my next moves. Jennifer would come home eventually, probably expecting me to be angry or hurt or ready to forgive her. She was going to be disappointed. My phone rang around noon. Jennifer. "Danny, we need to talk." "I'm listening." "Not over the phone. I'm coming home." "Take your time. I'm not going anywhere." She hung up without saying goodbye. I had maybe an hour before she arrived, time enough to set the first part of my plan in motion. I drove to the electronics store downtown and bought a cheap smartphone, identical to Jennifer's model. Then I stopped by the phone store and had them transfer her number to the new device, a trick I'd learned when she'd broken her phone 6 months ago and needed a quick replacement. The beauty of the plan was its simplicity. Jennifer's real phone was still in her purse, but now I had a device that received all her calls and texts. I could monitor everything and, when the time was right, send messages as her. Back home, I hid the duplicate phone in my workshop and waited. Jennifer arrived at 2 o'clock, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. She was still wearing last night's dress. Wrinkled now, her makeup smudged. She looked guilty and defiant at the same time. "We need to talk," she said again. I figured. Coffee? She seemed surprised by my calm tone. "Sure." I made coffee, taking my time, letting the silence stretch between us. Jennifer sat at the kitchen table, fidgeting with her purse strap. Last night was, she began. Illuminating, I finished. Really opened my eyes. Danny, I'm sorry about the way Richard acted. The money thing was inappropriate. The money thing. I set her coffee down in front of her. Is that what we're calling it? She had the grace to look ashamed. He was trying to make a point. What point was that exactly? Jennifer took a sip of coffee, buying time. That things between us aren't working, that maybe we want different things now? Such as? I don't know. Success, ambition, a life that's going somewhere. And I'm holding you back from that life. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Your emails to Blackwood said it for you. Her face went pale. You went through my computer? After my wife left a public event with another man? Yeah, I went through your computer. Interesting reading? Jennifer stood up abruptly. You had no right. I had every right. We're married, remember? Though apparently that doesn't mean much to you anymore. Danny, please, this doesn't have to be ugly. Too late for that. Blackwood made sure of that last night. She started pacing, her heels clicking on the kitchen floor. What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry? That it was all a mistake? I want you to be honest. For once. Jennifer stopped pacing and looked at me directly. Fine. You want honesty? I'm not happy, Danny. I haven't been happy for years. You're content to fix boats and drink beer and live in this same small town forever. I want more. More like Blackwood's money. More like Blackwood's ambition, his drive, his vision for the future. His penthouse suite at the Harbor Grand. Jennifer's face flushed. How did you? Small town, Jennifer. People notice things. People talk. She sat back down, her defiance crumbling. What happens now? I leaned back in my chair, studying her face. 8 years of marriage, and I was seeing her clearly for the first time. Now? Now you get exactly what you want. What do you mean? You want excitement, adventure, a life that's going somewhere? I smiled, and something in my expression made her lean back. You're about to get more than you bargained for. Jennifer left an hour later, claiming she needed space to think. She was probably going straight to Blackwood or to Lisa's place to strategize. It didn't matter. I had work to do. The duplicate phone had already received 3 text messages from Blackwood. I read them with growing anger and disgust, but also with satisfaction. Every message was evidence, proof of their affair and their plan to humiliate me. But evidence worked both ways. I composed a text message mimicking Jennifer's writing style. Danny's getting suspicious about the emails. We need to be more careful. Blackwood's response came within minutes. Don't worry about Danny. After last night, he knows where he stands. Meet me at the usual place tonight. Perfect. I spent the rest of the afternoon making preparations. By evening, I had everything I needed. A camera with a telephoto lens, borrowed from Tommy's surveillance equipment collection, a GPS tracker small enough to hide in a wheel well, and most importantly, a plan that would turn their game against them. Jennifer came home just long enough to shower and change clothes. She barely spoke to me, which was fine. I was done with conversation. Going out again? I asked as she headed for the door. Lisa's having a girls' night. Have fun? She paused at the door, maybe expecting me to fight or beg or make a scene. When I didn't, she left without another word. I waited 10 minutes, then followed. The Harbor Grand Hotel sat on a bluff overlooking the ocean, all glass and steel and pretentious architecture. I parked across the street in the lot of a defunct restaurant, my camera ready, and waited. Jennifer's car pulled into the valet area at 8:30. She stepped out wearing a black dress I'd never seen before, something expensive and revealing. The valet took her keys with the kind of deference reserved for high-paying guests. She walked into the hotel like she belonged there. I gave her 5 minutes, then crossed the street. The lobby was all marble and mirrors, designed to make regular people feel small. I kept my head down and walked purposefully toward the elevators, like I had every right to be there. The penthouse elevator required a key card, but I'd expected that. Tommy's cousin Rick had provided more than just information. He'd also given me a temporary maintenance card, good for 24 hours. The penthouse floor had only 2 suites. Blackwood's was at the end of the hall, behind heavy oak doors. I pressed my ear against the wood and heard voices inside, Jennifer's laugh, Blackwood's deeper tones. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was intimate, conspiratorial. They were probably planning their next move, deciding how to handle the inconvenience of Jennifer's husband. I set up the camera in an alcove across from the door, angled to capture anyone coming or going. Then I went back downstairs to wait. They emerged 2 hours later, Jennifer's hair mussed, Blackwood's shirt wrinkled. They looked satisfied with themselves, like cats who'd gotten into the cream. I followed them to Blackwood's Bentley, staying far enough back to avoid detection. He drove to Chez Laurent, the most expensive restaurant in town, where they had a late dinner by candlelight. I sat in my truck across the street, watching them through the restaurant's floor-to-ceiling windows. They held hands across the table. Jennifer leaned forward when Blackwood spoke, hanging on his every word. She'd never looked at me like that. But here's what they didn't know. I'd planted the GPS tracker on Blackwood's car while they were upstairs. Now I could follow their movements without being seen, track their patterns, learn their routines. Knowledge was power, and I was just getting started. Over the next 3 days, I documented everything. Jennifer told me she was working late, but the GPS showed Blackwood's car at expensive restaurants, art galleries, even a jewelry store. She said she was visiting her mother, but they were actually at a bed and breakfast 2 towns over. Every lie was cataloged, every deception recorded. But I wasn't just gathering evidence, I was learning their weaknesses. Blackwood, for all his money and arrogance, was surprisingly insecure. He name-dropped constantly, bragged about his wealth, needed constant validation. He was the kind of man who defined himself by what he owned and who he could control. Jennifer was drunk on the attention, the luxury, the feeling of being desired by someone powerful. She posted cryptic messages on social media about new beginnings and following your heart. Her friends from TechFlow were starting to notice, asking questions she couldn't answer directly. The pressure was building on both sides. That's when I decided to apply some pressure of my own. I started small. A call to the Harbor Grand's management, expressing concern about noise complaints from the penthouse suite. An anonymous tip to the local gossip blog about a certain real estate developer's extravagant spending. A casual mention to Mrs. Patterson at the marina that Jennifer seemed to be working a lot of late nights lately. Small-town gossip was like wildfire. Once it started, it spread on its own. Within a week, people were talking. I heard the whispers at the grocery store, the marina, Tommy's shop. Jennifer's behavior was becoming the subject of speculation, and speculation in a small town was almost as damaging as facts. But I wanted more than damage. I wanted destruction. The opportunity came when I overheard a phone conversation between Jennifer and Lisa. Jennifer had left her real phone at home. She was using a burner phone to communicate with Blackwood now, thinking she was being clever, and Lisa called the house line. "I'm worried about you," Lisa said when I put Jennifer on the phone. "People are starting to talk." "Let them talk," Jennifer replied. "I'm finally living my life." "But what about Danny? What about your job? Richard Blackwood has a reputation, Jen. He's done this before with other women. This is different." "That's what they all think." After Jennifer hung up, she was quiet for the rest of the evening. I could see the doubt creeping in, the first cracks in her certainty. Time to widen those cracks. I used the duplicate phone to send Blackwood a message. "Lisa's asking too many questions. She knows about us. What should I do?" His response was immediate and revealing. "Don't worry about Lisa. I'll handle her like I handled your husband. Some people need to learn their place." Perfect. I screenshot the message and sent it anonymously to Lisa's work email, along with a note. "Thought you should know what your friend's boyfriend really thinks of you." Then I sat back and waited for the fireworks. Lisa confronted Jennifer the next day at TechFlow's offices. I knew this because Tommy's girlfriend worked in the building across the street and had a clear view of the TechFlow conference room. They were going at it for 20 minutes, she reported to Tommy, who passed it along to me. Lots of pointing and shouting. Jennifer looked like she was crying by the end. The confrontation had exactly the effect I'd hoped for. Jennifer came home that evening shaken and defensive. "Lisa's being ridiculous," she said, pacing around the living room. "She's jealous because I'm finally happy." "Are you?" I asked. "Happy, I mean." Jennifer stopped pacing. "What kind of question is that?" "An honest one. You've been sneaking around for months, lying to everyone who cares about you, destroying your reputation in this town. You look exhausted, stressed out, paranoid. If this is happiness, I'd hate to see what misery looks like. You don't understand what it's like to feel trapped. Trapped? In a marriage where you were free to pursue your career, follow your dreams, be yourself? Yeah, that sounds terrible. It's not about the marriage, Danny. It's about the life, this small town, these small people with their small minds. People like me. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Blackwood's been filling your head with ideas about how much better you deserve, how much more you could have. But what's he actually offered you, Jennifer? Besides hotel rooms and expensive dinners?" She didn't answer, which was answer enough. "He hasn't asked you to leave me, has he? Hasn't mentioned marriage or moving in together or any kind of future. You're just his entertainment." "You're wrong." "Am I? When's the last time he talked about anything beyond next week? Next month? Has he introduced you to his friends, his family, his business associates? Or do you just meet in hotel rooms and restaurants where nobody knows him? Jennifer's face was pale now, her confidence cracking. He cares about me. He cares about the game, the conquest, the thrill of taking another man's wife. But once the game gets boring, once the conquest is complete, what do you think happens then? She didn't answer because she was starting to realize I was right. That night, I heard her crying in the guest bedroom where she'd been sleeping, soft, muffled sobs that went on for hours. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. The next morning brought a new development. Blackwood's GPS tracker showed him at the offices of Hartwell and Associates, the most expensive law firm in the county. He spent 3 hours there, divorce lawyers. I wasn't surprised. Blackwood was preparing for the next phase of his game, the part where he convinced Jennifer to leave me, probably with some promise of a future together that he had no intention of keeping. But I had a few surprises of my own planned. I'd spent the past week gathering information about Blackwood's business dealings using public records and Tommy's network of contacts. The picture that emerged wasn't pretty. Blackwood Development Group was leveraged to the hilt, with loans against every property and project. His cash flow was entirely dependent on new investments and pre-sales, a house of cards that could collapse if the wrong person asked the wrong questions. More importantly, several of his projects had environmental issues that hadn't been properly disclosed to investors. Nothing criminal, but the kind of regulatory problems that could tie up developments for years and cost millions in remediation. I compiled everything into a detailed report and sent copies to the State Environmental Agency, the County Planning Commission, and 3 local news outlets. Then I waited. The story broke on a Thursday morning. Local developer faces environmental violations ran on the front page of the county paper, with follow-up stories in the regional business journal and on 2 TV news programs. Blackwood's phone started ringing immediately. I knew this because I was monitoring his communications through a scanner Tommy had lent me, not illegal since I was only listening to public frequencies. By afternoon, 2 of his major investors had pulled out of current projects. By evening, the county had issued a stop work order on his biggest development. Jennifer came home that night looking shaken. "Did you hear about Richard's troubles?" she asked. "Hard to miss. It's all over the news." The timing seems convenient. I looked up from my newspaper. Convenient how? Someone's been asking questions about his business, digging into his finances. The environmental agency got an anonymous tip with detailed information that would have taken months to compile. Sounds like someone did their homework. Jennifer studied my face. Someone with a grudge. Or someone with a conscience. Those environmental violations are real, aren't they? The regulatory problems, the investor issues, all legitimate concerns. That's not the point, isn't it? You've been so focused on what Blackwood could give you that you never asked where it was coming from. Turns out it was coming from cutting corners, hiding problems, and hoping nobody would notice. Jennifer sat down across from me, her expression serious. "What do you want, Danny?" "I want my wife back. And if that's not possible?" I folded the newspaper and looked at her directly. "Then I want her to understand the consequences of her choices." "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise. You wanted excitement, adventure, a bigger life. Congratulations, you're about to get exactly that." Jennifer left the house that night and didn't come back. The next morning, I put the final phase of my plan into motion. The Seaside Arts Festival was the social event of the summer, drawing hundreds of people from across the region. Jennifer would be there with her TechFlow colleagues, probably trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy while her world crumbled around her. Blackwood would be there too, attempting damage control, trying to reassure investors and business partners that his recent troubles were temporary setbacks. They were both wrong. I arrived early and set up my booth. Officially, I was representing Murphy's Marine Services, displaying restored boat engines and offering repair consultations. Unofficially, I was positioning myself at the center of the festival's main thoroughfare, where everyone would have to pass by. Tommy was there with his motorcycle club, ostensibly providing security services but actually serving as my backup. We'd rehearsed this carefully. Everything had to look spontaneous, natural, like a chance encounter that spiraled out of control. Jennifer arrived at noon with her TechFlow team, wearing a bright summer dress and oversized sunglasses, trying to project confidence she clearly didn't feel. She saw me immediately but pretended not to, steering her group toward the opposite side of the festival grounds. Blackwood showed up an hour later with a small entourage of business associates, working the crowd like a politician, shaking hands and making small talk. He was good at it, charming, persuasive, the kind of man who could sell ice to penguins. But charm only worked when people trusted you, and trust was a fragile commodity. I waited until both groups were in position, then made my move. "Richard Blackwood," I called out, loud enough to be heard over the crowd noise. Just the man I wanted to see. Blackwood turned, his smile faltering when he recognized me. The conversations around us quieted as people sensed drama approaching. "Danny," he said carefully, "enjoying the festival?" "Oh, absolutely. Beautiful day, great turnout, perfect weather for airing dirty laundry." His associates exchanged glances. Jennifer had gone pale behind her sunglasses. "I'm not sure what you mean," Blackwood said. "Really? Because I've been doing some research into your business practices and I found some fascinating information. Would you like to share it with everyone here, or should I?" "I think you've caused enough trouble already." "Trouble? You mean like sleeping with my wife and humiliating me in public? That kind of trouble?" The crowd was growing now, people drawn by the confrontation. I could see phones coming out, cameras pointing in our direction. "This isn't the place for this discussion," Blackwood said. "Funny, you didn't seem to mind making a public spectacle when you threw money at me like I was your servant. Remember that? At the Yacht Club, in front of half the town?" Murmurs rippled through the crowd. People remembered. In a small town, everyone remembered everything. "That was a misunderstanding," Blackwood said. "Was it? Because it seemed pretty clear to me. You wanted everyone to know that you could take my wife and there was nothing I could do about it. Well, guess what? You were wrong." I pulled out a folder and opened it dramatically. "Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you about Richard Blackwood's business empire. Built on environmental violations, propped up by misleading investors, and financed through loans he can't possibly repay." "That's enough," Blackwood said, stepping forward. "Oh, we're just getting started. Did you know that 3 of his major projects are about to be shut down by the EPA, or that his primary lender is calling in their loans, or that 2 of his investors are suing him for fraud?" This last part wasn't entirely true yet, but it would be soon enough. "You're making a mistake," Blackwood said, his voice low and threatening. "The only mistake I made was trusting my wife and underestimating how low you'd sink to get what you want." Jennifer stepped forward, removing her sunglasses. "Danny, please, this isn't helping anyone." "Isn't it? I think it's helping quite a lot. People deserve to know who they're dealing with." I turned to address the crowd directly. "This man seduced my wife, humiliated me in public, and thought he could get away with it because he has money. Well, money can't buy you integrity, and it can't protect you from the consequences of your actions." "Security," Blackwood called out. "No need," Tommy said, appearing at my elbow with several of his motorcycle club members. "We're providing security today, remember? And as far as I can see, this is just a peaceful conversation between neighbors." Blackwood looked around desperately, realizing he was trapped. His business associates were backing away, not wanting to be associated with the scandal. Festival goers were recording everything on their phones. "You want to destroy me," he said. "I want to expose you. There's a difference." "And what about Jennifer? Are you going to destroy her too?" I looked at my wife, standing there in her summer dress, tears streaming down her face. For a moment, I felt something like the old affection, the love that had sustained us through 8 years of marriage. Then I remembered the emails, the lies, the public humiliation, the months of deception. "Jennifer made her choice," I said. "Now she gets to live with the consequences." I pulled out the duplicate phone and started reading their text messages aloud, the intimate conversations, the planning sessions, the casual dismissal of me as an obstacle to be managed. With each message, Jennifer seemed to shrink smaller. The crowd's murmur grew louder, more disapproving. "Stop," she whispered. "Why? You didn't stop when you were planning my humiliation. You didn't stop when you were laughing about how pathetic I was. You didn't stop when you walked out of that yacht club on his arm like I didn't exist." "I'm sorry," she said. "Sorry you got caught. Sorry it's not working out the way you planned. Sorry your rich boyfriend turned out to be a fraud. But are you sorry you betrayed 8 years of marriage? Are you sorry you tried to make me look like a fool? Are you sorry you threw away everything we built together?" She couldn't answer because we both knew the truth. Blackwood was backing toward his car now, his associates long gone, his reputation in tatters. "This isn't over," he said. "Yes, it is," I replied. "You're finished in this town. Your business is collapsing, your investors are fleeing, and everyone knows exactly what kind of man you are. Find another playground, because this one's closed to you." He got in his Bentley and drove away, leaving Jennifer standing alone in the middle of the crowd. "Danny," she said quietly, "what happens now?" I looked at her for a long moment, remembering the woman I'd married, trying to reconcile that memory with the stranger standing before me. "Now? Now you figure out how to live with what you've done, because I'm done cleaning up your mistakes." I packed up my booth and walked away, leaving Jennifer to face the whispers and stares alone. The festival continued around us, but the real show was over. 6 months later, I was working on a yacht engine when Tommy brought me the newspaper. Blackwood Development Group had filed for bankruptcy. Richard Blackwood had left town quietly, reportedly moving to Florida, where he was facing new legal challenges from previous business dealings. Jennifer had moved in with Lisa temporarily, then found her own apartment across town. TechFlow had let her go after the festival incident, citing concerns about her judgment and professionalism. She was working at a real estate office now, making a fraction of her previous salary. We'd signed divorce papers the previous month. The house was mine, along with the business and most of our shared assets. Jennifer got her car and her personal belongings. She'd tried to apologize several times, sending letters and emails that I'd read once and deleted. She wanted closure, forgiveness, a chance to explain herself. I wasn't interested in any of it. "You hear she's dating someone new?" Tommy asked, setting down his coffee. "Good for her. Some guy from the city, accountant or something. Hope it works out better this time." Tommy studied my face. "You really don't care anymore, do you?" I thought about it for a moment, testing my feelings like probing a sore tooth. "No," I said finally. "I really don't." And it was true. The anger had burned itself out, leaving behind something cleaner and simpler. I'd gotten my revenge, exposed the truth, and moved on with my life. Jennifer had wanted excitement and adventure. She'd gotten both, along with public humiliation, financial ruin, and the knowledge that her choices had consequences. Blackwood had wanted to play games with other people's lives. He'd learned that some people played back and played to win. As for me, I'd learned something too. I was stronger than I'd thought, more capable than anyone had given me credit for, including myself. The boat engine hummed to life, perfectly tuned and ready for whatever waters lay ahead. I was ready too.